Hey there, this is Noah from Skillet AI, and I am super excited to do a walkthrough of this new build. Some of you know me, some of you may not, but I've been a Facebook ad buyer for 10 years. I run another business that's all about, getting better performance from your meta ads. And in this walkthrough, in this project, we're basically building a way to automate pulling data every day from your Facebook ad account, extracting it from Facebook, putting it into a spreadsheet, and then using OpenAI and some custom code to send a daily report. This is a really cool project and it's super powerful. And there's a ton of other ways you could use this as well, but let's jump in and let's do a quick walkthrough of this. So the first node we have in here is essentially just setting that we want this to run once a day. You could set it at whatever interval you want, but I think, if once a day at midnight or at 5 a.m. or at 8 a.m. you run it, that's generally a good idea with meta ads because the attribution needs to kind of settle for the prior day. So if we pull this report, say at 5 a.m., and we're looking at the data from yesterday, that's probably going to be pretty accurate. All right, so this is the initial trigger. We come in here and we're just setting a couple variables, the ad account ID, the email we want to be notified. And then this is a really important node, and I don't want to glaze over this. So this is a node that is connecting via the Facebook API to your ad account, right? You need to have permission to the ad account. You need to have the ad account ID put into the previous node. And most importantly, for this to work, you need to have the right credentials. And this is when you go to set up the credentials here, essentially what you're doing is you're putting in a token. All right, so you can see you're putting in an access token. I think I can edit this existing one. All right, so this token has expired. Facebook tokens, when you create them, I'll show you in a second how to do it, they expire after, I think, 20 or 30 minutes. You then have to take the short-lived token, you have to pass it in to get a long-lived token. You can ask your favorite AI tool or Google how to do that. But once you put in a long-lived token, this can run every day and use the same token for months or years. All right, so just getting a token, this is really tricky. This is a quick walkthrough. I'm just going to hint at it. We go into the details in the full video, but you need to be a Facebook developer. You need to create an app of some kind, and then you can generate an access token for that app. All right, and now what I can do is say, great, I've generated an access token. I can now copy that access token. I can paste it in here. And when I hit save, this should now connect without an issue. Good to go. But in about 30 minutes, when that token expires, this isn't going to work anymore. All right, so now that this is working, I should be able to execute this step. I'm going to unpin the data. This is pulling fresh data. It's working. Good to go. Okay, this is the hardest part. The good news is what I've done for you is I've written a really clear and effective bit of code for querying the right information, right? So you're pulling in the ad account from the previous node. This is hard coded in. It's pulling at the campaign level all the data from yesterday. And this is an example. You can further tailor this, but you can basically see, campaign ID, campaign name, spend, impressions, clicks. If you want to test this, you can also put this into the tool over here. And you can essentially see, that's funny. I was not expecting it to say, oh, it's because I didn't put the ad account ID in. Let's go back here. Anyway, but you can basically test the queries. And if you wanted to expand on this query, what you could do is basically come in here and say, oh, you know what? I also want to add whatever it might be, ad name. I also want to add currency. I also want to add whatever. And so long as the query works, you could then put this updated block of text. The one thing to note is it's pulling in the account number as the node section, and then everything after that as the edge section. So this is super, super tricky and very important. Think of this as like the hero for this entire workflow. And then we have two helper flows on either side of this. The way the data comes formatted in, you really want to split it out. So this is a simple node that takes the data the way it's formatted, it splits it out into a different format, and essentially it just becomes properly structured that you can then write it to a Google Sheet. Here we're doing a rename of columns. Some of the column names are fine. Some of them are a little bit weird. So like we want to call it conversion type. We don't want to call it, offsite conversion .facebook pixel .what, like who knows what that is. Give these really clear names. And then once we have all the data structured correctly, named correctly, we're writing it to a Google Sheet. If you've seen any of our other videos, this is a super easy thing to do to connect to Google. And essentially we're just dragging in all the elements, date is date, campaign ID is campaign ID, and that basically writes into the spreadsheet. And here's an example of what it looks like. It might pull in multiple rows, 1 row per campaign, and then it's going to fill in all that data. Once we've done that, similar to the split out, we're now doing an aggregate. You can see the icons, they're basically the inverse, right? So one is going from one to many, one goes from many to one. With the aggregate, we're basically turning all these separate objects into one object. It's a blob, one single blob. That can go into ChatGPT. Here we tell it, you're a senior paid media analyst. Here's what you want to do with the data. And then we get all of these insights. And then we have a whole bunch of custom code. This is another super heavy lift. These two nodes, this Facebook node and this custom code node, these are what are really doing all the work. And again, there's an example. If you subscribe and you download the full file, you'll get everything, all the prompts, all the code, everything, a separate text. If you just download the file, you can probably work with what's here. But basically, that's creating this content that then gets emailed. All right, so this is like a whole leaderboard for cost per acquisition, cost per click, cost per impression, click-through rate, conversion rate, and you can see what's winning and what's losing. And then in aggregate, this is sort of a roll-up of all those fields in one with some averages. You can change this to whatever your key performance indicators are, but this is a great place to start. All right, and then basically the only thing we have down here is if something goes wrong, we're just resetting the same variables and we're sending an email saying something went wrong. So that's the overall walkthrough. This is super, super powerful. Again, I kind of shared some general examples, but just getting your data once a day out of Facebook into a spreadsheet, that is a massive unlock in terms of doing analysis, reporting, getting an email. Imagine every morning you wake up, you're making your cup of coffee, your Facebook results from the day before are literally waiting for you in your inbox. I think that's everyone's dream. Now you can build it yourself. You could work with your agency, figure out the right things to measure. But most importantly, there are so many other things that you could do with this workflow. I mentioned before, the real magic is happening in this API call. The real magic is happening in this custom code. Well, who's to say that this couldn't be an API call to Amazon and you're pulling once a day all the data from your Amazon seller account? Or who's to say this can't be a Shopify node and you're making an API call to pull all the orders from your Shopify store? All right, so this is a really good framework for essentially pulling data out of a system, putting it into a spreadsheet, running some analysis, and then sending yourself a report. All right, so again, I'm super excited about this. Hopefully this gives you a sense of what to build. And you can also watch our full video, which goes into all the details. There's a lot here. And in particular with these more difficult nodes, there's a lot more description of how to do what's needed. All right, so hopefully this is a total unlock for you and your ad account. Can't wait to see what all of you build. Cheers.